Okay, good morning. Morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to our event, The Future of Bio-Based Packaging, Co-Design Roadmap to 2030. We are delighted to have you here with us today. Before we start, I would like just to thank the people who organized, the team who organized this event, which is our colleagues from Crowdelix, as well as our colleagues from European Bioplastic. My name is Aldo. I have the pleasure to coordinate this project of amazing people and amazing partners. We will have today a few presentations on the context of the project. Before we start, let me explain that we will be having some question and answers Q&A sessions in between the speakers. For that, we will use an online platform called Pigeonhole. Pigeonhole, which you will have later on a QR code here from which you will be able to connect. This platform will allow you to go session by session of the speakers and include your questions in session by session, as well as you can vote for the questions that are already in every session, so we could see how the audience can prioritize those questions. Also, for the people online, please feel free to place your questions on the live chat that we have open right now. If you have any posting on social media, we kindly ask you also to include those tags that you see here, the Project Preserve, Crowdelix, and European Bioplastics. So, without further ado, let's start with the first session. Okay, I would like to introduce my colleague, Christina. So, Dr. Christina Eisenberger will introduce the project, Preserve Project. Christina is a research group leader at the Sustainable Packaging Institute, the Alstad Sigmaringen University. She is actively participating and coordinating this project. She is our technical coordinator, and she will talk today about the scientific and technical aspects of the project. Please feel free to post any questions in the Pigeonhole for Christina, and at the end of the session, we will just have a revision of them. So, Christina.
Thank you, Aldo. Let me just check. Okay, so I have the pleasure of introducing you to Preserve, which is also called high-performance sustainable bio-based packaging with tailored end-of-life and upcycled secondary use. So this project is the reason why we're all here today. Thank you for joining us in this exciting workshop. Okay, so, but first I would like to introduce you. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, I was just waiting for the last phone to drop. Okay, let's get started. So, but first I would like to introduce you a little bit more to myself and then to where I'm from. So I'm from the Sustainable Packaging Institute of Alstad Sigmaringen University. So where is Alstad? It's located between the Lake of Constance and Stuttgart. So we're located in this very nice building. And also Sigmaringen can be considered one of the nicer cities in Germany. We're involved in teaching and research in 6 thematic areas. And as you can tell by the name Sustainable Packaging Institute, our focus is sustainable packaging. Because we are on a mission. We are on the mission to support all players in the packaging industry along the entire value chain of the life science industry on the way to a more sustainable circular bioeconomy competently and holistically. And we really want to emphasize the holistic approach that we use in our institute. So these are the 6 thematic fields that we are involved in. First, biogenic raw materials. To give you an example, is like using recover residual proteins for barrier coatings, or also use chitin and chitosan from crustacea. But of course, for this new biogenic raw materials, we need processes. And that's the second field, process technology and process design. So for instance, optimizing the extraction process. Which leads us then to the functionalization, because the material needs to be functional. And one example is fatty acid grafting, which can enhance the moisture barrier and also mediate easy emptying properties. We also have a group on smart packaging. Smart packaging comprises active and intelligent. So active is, for instance, actively prolonging the shelf life by O2 scavengers or by antimicrobial substances. And intelligent packaging is, for instance, depicting a more dynamic best before date rather than a static one. For instance, with time temperature indicators or freshness indicators, so that you really can have reflect on what's the actual state of the packed food. Which leads us to preservation. So we're also involved in thinking of new sterilization methods for packaging materials, for instance, via electron radiation. And we're also involved in bioeconomy and sustainability, which means concepts, so developing holistical packaging concepts, including assessments, so LCL, LCC, social LCA, but also consumer perception tests. We're involved in quite some projects, as you can see, national and international, and of course we're here for Preserve. So, Preserve is a 4-year project. We are 23 partners, 7 research partners, like research technology centers, and then we also have partners along the circular supply and value chain with large end users, and of course with European Bioplastics, the largest bioplastic producer as user association. And as you can see here, we have the part of raw materials, packaging, converters and producers, end users, entry and upcyclers, and we always have at least 3 industrial partners for all areas. So I think it's safe to say that we really try to depict the whole value chain in this project. But why do we need Preserve? There has to be a reason that the EU decided to fund this project. So Europe is not too close to its sustainability goals like CO2 neutrality in 2030. In 2021, we produced 10 million tons of packaging, 19 million tons, so that's a lot. The required recycling rate by 2030 is 70%. So 2 years ago, unfortunately I didn't have later figures or more recent figures, the recycling rates varied between 38 and 80% in Europe. So 80% sounds great, but 38% doesn't sound too great. So we have like a huge variation within Europe. That means the average is about 64. So there is still a lot of room for improvement, I'd say. Yeah. Yeah. So we believe and we are convinced that we need bio-based materials that are high in performance. They need to be produced, developed, implemented. But all these materials don't mean anything if we can't recycle them. So also the recycling processes need to be established, but also in motion, because we're currently facing a market that is very flexible. So also the end-of-life options for the packaging needs to be flexible. And also biodegradability of biopolymers application could be expanded to more environments. So how do we do that? So let's start here with the synthesis of new biopolymers. Normally, you create packaging, and after the end of life, it can be recycled, it can be landfilled, it can be incinerated. But what we do, we have something in between. We have this upgrading and upcycling toolbox. So we have this newly synthesized biopolymers, and we have here our tools like protein barrier coatings, PHA coatings, electron radiation, enzymation. And we use this toolbox to create new packaging. By the end of life, there are several options. So depending on the material, for instance, if it's all biodegradable, it can go to biodegradation, form new biomass, which can then potentially be used for new biopolymer synthesis. Or we go to material recovery. And here we have enzymatic recycling. So, for instance, from PLA, we go to oligomers of lactic acid, which can then be used again for new biopolymer synthesis, which can then be refed in this toolbox. Or we go to material recovery in terms of self-reinforcement or delamination for packaging. And then we have recycled biopolymers and can create textiles and composites also via this upgrading and upcycling toolbox, is to really close the loop. So that means we have materials for one application, and after the end of life, we can truly separate them to have other applications for that. And now I will introduce you to some aspects of it. So the protein coating, we use whey protein. Why whey protein? It's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the dairy industry. The annual production of whey in Europe is about 50 million tons per year. And half of it is discarded, approximately, which means 25 million tons of whey are not wanted. So that's a massive potential for barrier coatings. And also, whey protein coatings are relatively well studied, and they can have exceptional oxygen barrier characteristics. So they could really be a game changer and substitute EVOH. And also, and that's the best thing about it, I would say, you can use it as a separation layer. So here I depicted a very artificial packaging structure with PLA, protein layer, and PET. And what happens, you can dissolve this protein layer, and then the PLA and the PET are no longer laminated but delaminated, and you can separate them and feed back into the respective material cycle. And also, when we now go a little bit more into detail on that was theory, and now like how are the values, what are the improvements? So as of now, we have upscaled it to pilot plant, and we're now currently working on scaling it up to industrial level. And let's start here with PLA. We start at an OTR, so oxygen transmission rate of around 600 cubic centimeters per day, square meter day and bar. For PET, we start at around 60. And when we now add a 5 to 7 micrometer thick layer of whey protein, we reduce it to 15 to 25 cubic centimeters per day and bar. So we have a massive reduction of oxygen passing through. And what's even cooler is that we, or our colleagues at Fraunhofer, managed to metallize this protein layer. And we have a further reduction to a level of below 0.2 cubic centimeters per square meter day and bar. And as you can see here, when we compare it to commercially available metallized PLA or commercially available metallized PET, the metallization of the whey protein is way below the commercially available metallized films. So it's safe to say that it's pretty good, I'd say. But beside that, our colleagues at AIMPLUS and Sandexpert are also working on PHA coatings. And Sandexpert has a very interesting approach, which is inspired by the PVC coating. So it's a more or less 100% solid approach with only PHA, plasticizer, and some water. It's applicable on paperboard. It fuses it within 2 minutes. And as you can see here, it disintegrates fully within 4 to 8 weeks. So these tests were done by our colleagues from Normic OWS. And here you can see some of the water vapor transmission rate results in different ambient, how do you call it? Environment, thank you. So for instance, in red, we have a refrigerating environment, and in blue, we have tropical environment. Of course, tropical is always very challenging for water vapor transmission rate measurements. But as you can see at ambient conditions or refrigerating conditions, they're also not too bad, so very promising. On contrast, our colleagues from AIMPLUS are delving into PHA extrusion coating as an alternative to the wet coating, which is also extrudable on paperboard. And as you can see here, some results on PHA films, water vapor transition rate on PHA films of different grades. And it's also very promising with values between 4.6, I'd say, and 7.2. Of course, we have also more results, but to present the whole result from every aspect of this project, we would be here for even more time. So, what I think is very important to keep in mind or to take from this presentation is that bio-based multi-layers have the potential to rethink food packaging. And also that we have options to design it in a way that it can be truly separated and the material can be fed back into the material cycle for high performance secondary applications. So we can design these food packaging like flow packs, trays, pouches, beverage bricks in a way that the material can, after the end of life, be separated, truly recycled in terms of material recovery, and then be reborn, so to say, as injected jar bottles, carrier boxes, or bags. Of course, we don't do that alone. That's an amazing consortium of Preserve. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
We have a couple of questions, Christina. Mm-hmm. The first one is, where do you see the biggest challenges in transferring your results to actual industrial applications?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what's always a bit tricky is upscaling. I mean, every researcher knows that what works in the lab sometimes may need a little bit more effort to really upscale it to pilot level or industrial level. So I think scalability for some aspects might be critical or at least challenging. And what I think is also a bit of a challenge is that Preserve is really like a value chain project. So it's not just one industry that may need to implement it, like packaging, to add it to the products, but also recycling, because this means that also the recyclers need to have investments so that they can integrate our way of separating and recycling the material.
And the second one is, how could enzymatic delamination of whey protein coatings be implemented?
Yeah, it can be implemented actually after shredding, when often or mostly the material is washed then, and you can simply add the enzymes to the washing step, or you could, what can also work is to elevate the washing temperature. So that's, yeah, a rather easy way, but of course it depends on the material flows within the recycling plant.
And one very interesting one is regarding the whey protein coatings, what would it mean for vegans?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't use it for vegan products, to be honest. Yeah, I think vegans would not be too happy with that. Yeah, of course, the packaging would not be vegan. So I'm not sure how the certification for vegan products work. If that is like one prerequisite for the certification, it will, of course, hinder the implementation for that market.
Good. Thank you very much, Christina. Okay, thank you, Christina, for this great explanation of Preserve. We take notes of this challenge for the vegan world, how to include this in our next project. So please remember, for any questions you have, to scan the code that will bring you directly to the pigeonhole for questioning. The second speaker of the day will be Dr. Silvia Maltagliati. We have her with us today. She works in the policy, she's a policy officer at the European Commission. She holds a master in physics and a PhD in industrial engineering, and contributes to the Horizon Europe's Cluster 6 and also to the Bio-Based Europe Joint Undertaking Program. We have the pleasure to have Dr. Maltagliati today, and she will explain us a bit of how the European Commission covers the Horizon Europe's research and innovation program on the bio-based packaging.
And I guess that I will manage myself the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. So in fact, as said, I work for the European Commission. As said, the DG, the Director General Research and Innovation. And I'm very pleased to be here and to say some words and share some thoughts about the R&I programming orientation, say, of the Commission on bio-based packaging. I work in the DG of Research and Innovation, and especially in the directorate called Healthy Planets, Unit Green Transitions. And basically, the mission of my unit is about develop and deploy circular economy and bio-based systems in a way that, in fact, they can enable and reach a green transition. The DG Research and Innovation is the institution, say, that manage Horizon Europe Work Program. You may know this is almost 100 billion framework program supporting research and innovation for European and associated countries again. So I would like to go ahead instead of back. I would like to introduce again some very common concepts that you may be absolutely aware about, but that define the scope of my speech. Basically, bio-based chemicals, materials, or products are the one made from biomass, biological resources, including animals, plants, microorganisms, and derived biomass, including biowaste, so from primary and secondary biomass. This definition is basically included in the Bioeconomy Strategy 2018, yes, and was also used in the most recent delegated act of the Sustainable Finance Regulation, the so-called taxonomy. So it's something, say, already belonging to the legislation. Then packaging. What is packaging is obvious, but anyway, there is a definition in the current packaging and packaging waste directive, and also in the packaging and packaging waste regulation. There is another one slightly different, but basically the concept is that packaging is something that is used for the containment, protection, handling, delivery, or presentation of products. And then plastics also deserve a special place here because, in fact, plastic is one of the most common and sometimes controversial material of which packaging is made. The definition can be found in the REACH regulation, where it is said that plastic material is basically something formed by synthetic polymers. Although, in fact, there is now another, say, layer of discussion about natural polymers, because natural polymers that are basically polymers that have not been chemically modified. For example, in the amendments of the REACH regulation itself now are sometimes assimilated to synthetic polymers. But anyway, the discussion about the difference between synthetic and natural polymers, I think that is not yet over. Anyway. And what I'm going to say, I'm going to say something about R&I topics included in the last work programs of two clusters, Cluster 4 and Cluster 6 of Horizon Europe. As Horizon Europe in its Pillar 2, that is about industrial competitiveness, is indeed developed through 6 clusters, of which Cluster 6, the one on bio-based innovation system, is the cluster on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And indeed, the Directorate Healthy Planet contributes to this Cluster 6. In drafting the topics, where it aims at European industrial sustainability, cascading use of biomass, circular bio-based systems, replacing carbon-intensive and fossil-based systems with inclusive engagement of all stakeholders, among other expected outcomes. Whereas the Cluster 4, Digital Industry and Space, also is dedicated to deliver industrial leadership, breakthrough technologies, and etc. Then, under the same Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, the same pillar established some partnerships. And basically, one of those is the Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking, which is a partnership, a public-private partnership between the European Union, represented by the Commission, and the private partner, which is the Bio-Based Industry Consortium. And it's a partnership worth 2 billion euros, basically. And also in this case, the joint undertaking is dedicated and its aim is to develop R&I projects from lab scale until the pre-commercial stage. And it will run until 2031. It has started 2021, sorry, the programming. So the unit's green transition, where I work in fact, is the one managing basically the commission part of the programming of this joint undertaking. So drafting together with the private partner, the work program, and collecting, of course, the consultation of the other EC services. So what's happened in the last 4 years work programs of Cluster 4 and Cluster 6 and CBJU work program? In fact, they were granted projects advancing the knowledge of bio-based systems, touching upon different aspects of, say, the plastic and packaging, the packaging world, actually, with a total of 260 millions of topics to grant R&I projects, indeed touching aspects of the packaging world, as said, of which 120 specifically focusing on bio-based packaging and also bio-based composites, including for packaging purposes, and the rest, developing innovative technologies, such as also those based on photonics. I think that there is, yes, just examples on these slides, of course. Also based on photonics, but in general to improve any manufacturing processes, also including the one dedicated to packaging, with no prescription of the raw material used. So for example, the cluster 4 topics indeed can be used for fossil-based packaging. And then on top of that, there are also approximately 210 million euros dedicated to, say, economic and social aspects that in some sense impact also on the packaging consumption, basically, of which at least 110, so the half of these budgets, indeed address the food sector and food consumption, so packaging in these specific sectors. In the next 5 slides, I have given examples of these topics, touching upon aspects of biodegradable polymers, packaging, and also the biodegradable plastics, the recyclability of plastics, the overpackaging problems. These are instead cross-cutting, manufacturing techniques, and also sustainable organic food innovation, so other social and economic aspects that impact on packaging, or also, for example, pre-normative research to develop standards for biodegradability of bio-based products in controlled and in open environments. So a list of projects, of topics that you may find in the work programs. And but going back a bit, there is also another contribution from the joint undertaking, which is about 70 million euros already dedicated to packaging or plastics or polymers, all bio-based, in the last 2 work programs only, 22 and 23. And we are now in the discussion of the 24 work program to be delivered very soon. So to say that you may understand that all these efforts spent for the bio-based packaging and bio-based polymers means that, in fact, we believe that bio-based materials, chemicals and products are, in fact, one of the solutions for the green transition. And in fact, I would like to say that, to share with you the fact that the R&I orientations, I would say the R&I drivers for our programming, even in the future, are, for example, to deliver bio-based solutions in general that can replace fossil-intensive resources by sustainable and renewable biomass, including bio-waste, that can contribute to the climate neutrality and also the biodiversity protection, that they are enabled by the power of biotechnology combined with advances in information technology, because the digitalization is at the core of the innovation. And then, of course, we also want to ensure that there is an equal distribution of benefits and revenues along the value chain. This was already touched a bit by Catherine, the fact that the value chain is something that is important, but we agree on starting the value chain from the primary producers through the industrial operators to the end users, including local governments and citizens, and we want also to increase the level and appeal of jobs in agriculture and possibly fisheries and in forestry, also thanks to the rapid developments of the digital tools. And all this must happen with sustainability, resilience, and inclusions as leading, inspirations of the R&I programming. So the second driver for the R&I programming, of course, you may imagine, are the laws, the regulations, the legislation in general of the Union. And here I have just a very short summary of some items of this legislation, focusing on packaging. The first one is the Single-Use Plastic Directive. You may know it's very well, that addresses the plastic littering in the marine environment. And this directive included bans and limitations to plastic items, including packaging, such as food and beverage packaging, of course. Then we have the proposal for a packaging and packaging waste regulation, whereas today there is the directive. And in this regulation, in fact, we had touched the whole life cycle of packaging, with the objective basically to make it circular and sustainable. These are the main objectives. And for this purpose, of course, this proposal for a regulation includes a number of provisions, say from the design and then the performance of packaging that, of course, are valid for the bio-based packaging, which is so far not, in fact, mentioned in the proposal. Then we have the communication on the EU policy framework on bio-based, biodegradable and compostable plastics that has, say, brought to the attention some concepts and I would say some elements to be clarified and harmonized. So first, the terminology and definitions, for example, of the bio-based content and its certification, but also understanding when we say bio-based and when we say biodegradable or when we say bioplastic, what we mean, what do we mean, because it may be not clear. Then the concern about feedstock sustainability. For example, this communication proposed that biomass used for the bio-based plastics in general must meet the EU sustainability criteria in place now for bioenergy. Then there is a need to understand how to assess the climate neutrality of such plastics, for example, also compared to the fossil-based counterpart, how to assess the carbon storage capacity of bio-based plastics, and what biodegradability and biodegradation means. Say that in this communication it is said that biodegradation is a system property that takes into account not only the material properties but also the specific environment and conditions where the biodegradation occurs. Then we have these other two pieces of, say, not legislation, because the first one is the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee in Complastic Pollution, which would like, hopefully, to set some legally binding say, targets at a global level. But still, the discussion is, say, at the very beginning. There was the last discussion in Nairobi last November, but we don't have the official documents, not yet, but in principle, so far, for example, so far in the documents available so far, we see that biodegradable and bio-based plastics are mentioned as possible alternatives to plastic items, but we don't know if this will stay, basically. And finally, we have the communication on sustainable carbon cycle, again from the Commission, where it was set at the target of at least 20% of chemical materials to be bio-based by 2030. So you may understand that based on these pieces of legislation, there are some R&I orientations to be taken. And say from the SUP, from the Single-Use Plastic Directive, the directive itself calls the Commission to assess the criteria for the biodegradability in the marine environment of plastic items or substitute for plastic items. Then we have the packaging regulation, as said, which is still in the trilogue discussion, that asks to address many requirements for packaging and so also for bio-based packaging. I insist on that. Such, for example, the restriction on the concentration level of harmful substances like cadmium, lead, mercury, and others. Then the packaging, the packaging. To be recyclable at scale means that must be designed in order to be recycled, and then it should be ensure that recyclers, recyclability and recycling facilities are indeed in place, and also the separate collection and sorting of packaging. And third, in fact, that the plastic packaging should contain a certain minimum amount of recycled content. And fourth, also this proposed regulation defines the condition to for some packaging to be considered compostable, and also proposes to set as mandatory some compostable packaging. Moreover, there are a number of targets on reusing, refilling, targets in fact for different sectors, and then to also labeling. Labeling is part of one of the enablers for circular packaging, and there is in fact, these things. But on top of that, I would like to also mention the fact that the European Parliament also has adopted their final position. You may be aware of that, in which there are more elements. The Parliament introduced the concept of home compostability that also may be of some interest for the bio-based sectors, and proposed to eliminate PFAS from the food packaging, and this is a big step ahead, I would say. And also, it was introduced a requirement to assess targets for the use of bio-based plastics feedstock in packaging in order to meet the target for recyclability. Being the biomass, say, contribution up to the 50% of the target already set. So there are many elements for R&I, would say, orientations. And from the communication on EU policy on framework on bio-based, biodegradable and compostable plastics, in fact, there is the section dedicated to R&I options for the future. Well, it is said that basically the Commission will promote research and innovation in order to ensure the sustainability of the bio-based plastics and the feedstock from which the plastic is made. About the two last pieces with which I will conclude, in fact, the ink on plastic pollution so far includes a part dedicated to R&I, say, exchanges. So the international cooperation in this sense means exchanging knowledge, technologies, as far as possible, and as far as, say, the industrial secrets are respected, in order to improve altogether towards the limiting of plastic pollution. And finally, the communication on sustainable carbon cycle calls for the development of methodologies and the set in place of an integrated EU bioeconomy land use assessment, which is indeed part of the sustainability picture of the bio-based sectors. And with that, I conclude, and I thank you very much for the attention and for being here, available for any questions that may come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silvia, for this presentation. I think it's been very enlightening. We have a few questions, very interesting ones. The first one will be when it's more related to the actions on the European Union. If you could enlighten us with this as well. When will the European Union start to tax instead of subsidizing fossil-based plastics, so that the bio-based materials could have a real chance in the real market?
Very good. So starting from the very hardest question, but indeed this is always expected. In fact, I would say that I would agree that we are not at the same, at a level playing field, as we say, between the fossil-based products and the bio-based products, in fact. This cannot be. Because, in fact, if we think what happened with the bioenergy and the bio-based and biofuels compared to the fossil-based energy, it was a long run up to now to understand which were the good technologies and how to promote the deployment of the best solutions. And this long run also meant some mistakes from here to then. So to say that sometimes you also think that one solution could be the best, but then you can also discover that this is not always the case. And in this long run, we had to put a lot of support, incentives, in order to have today a visible share of the energy produced in Europe, which is renewable. So what I say that, of course, we cannot expect that for the bio-based products and materials can be much different from that. Of course, we want to speed this process. We want to accelerate the innovation. And I think that we are seeing more and more the need to do this leap. It's not just a step. We should, at a certain point, do this. About the subsidies to fossil fuels, in fact, this is a big question. I think that is not yet under discussion, I would say. So I can just say that from the research and innovation perspective, the Union has some clear mind. And the clear mind, I have shown to you the fact that we are trying to invest in the best technologies. Of course, one of the things that we should do in order also to enable the deployments of this bio-based solution is to, say, attract investors, even the private investors, and to steal investors from the fossil, say, sectors towards the bio-based sectors. So maybe this will make some change.
Would you have, in that sense, would you have any advice, let's say, how to communicate the real impact of bio-based products to, for example, small markets or stores, so they could make, this transition towards production or acquisition of bio-based products, given that right now they're a bit more expensive than fossil fuel-based products?
Yeah, it's true that they are more expensive, but what I see in Europe, differently from other parts of the world, is that consumers are a bit more conscious. And apparently we are more ready to pay a bit more now if we see clear information on the sustainability and the reliability of what we buy. And this is one point, but cannot be just that. But anyway, the information is absolutely an important point, is absolutely true. And we have to make it clear from, say, along, as said many times, along the value chains, including the supply chains. So we need to have a clear view of what is really sustainable and clearly inform consumers, but not only consumers, also customers. So it's also a B2B information that must be done in order to improve and to spread the use of bio-based materials. But I think that in some sense, even the legislation with more stringent limits on the safe and sustainability of products may help in that sense. So we need to make and to produce safe and sustainable bio-based chemicals and products.
And the very last one, what do you predict could be the orientations of the Commission for the next program of fundings supporting the sector of bio-based packaging?
In fact, I illustrated, I think, in my slides, some of the drivers, of this, of the future orientations, which indeed concretely at the end will imply that we will support safe and sustainable by design, bio-based chemicals and products, because there is also in place a framework for the safe and sustainable by design chemicals that we want to follow, and bio-based should follow this path. But also we see that possibly there is the need to develop more infrastructures to test and upscale the processes, because this was also the question that the speaker before me received, how to upscale things and solutions, innovative solutions. And maybe we need, in fact, infrastructures able to do this testing and to support, I would say, encourage and accompany the pilots until the market scale. Another element that will be always present now, from now on, will be the so-called multi-actor approach. That means, again, that we need to involve all the actors along the value chains in order to be sure that a final product will be well perceived by the consumers, but also will always have the support of, for example, the primary producers that are the first, part of this chain. And in general, I think that we should start, okay, we already started, to reflect well about the availability of the biomass, of the feedstock for this sector. Because, of course, there is a limited availability of biomass, and there is a big competition with other sectors. The food sector is just one example. The bioenergy sector is another example. So we need absolutely to understand better how to make it sustainable. A big answer and a clear answer is also enhanced circularity, because it's true that nowadays the share of products and materials that are really recycled and reused is really embarrassing low. So we need to increase in that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can pass then to the next speaker. Remember, you have always the QR code for the questions you may want to place. Our next speaker is Kees Jurgens. Kees is responsible for growing the academic and industrial membership based of CrowdHelix international network and collaboration platform. He will introduce today the circular plastic community that drives the impact acceleration and the future collaborations from Preserve research results. Kees.
Thank you. I've plugged in my computer, just waiting for it to pop up there. Okay. Amazing. So thank you all for coming. I'm Kees Jurgens. I'm the head of membership development at CrowdHelix, and you can see the banner behind me. You probably are aware that CrowdHelix is an impact acceleration partner in the Preserve project, so working in dissemination communications and some exploitation activities as well. The centerpiece of this is the Circular Plastics Helix community, which I will show to you today. This is a community that we have developed on our platform. It's one of 50 different communities, thematic areas of interest that are populated with researchers from academia and industry, from policymaking, NGOs, charities, essentially anyone participating in the European research area. I'm going to show you how you can access this community right now and this platform. I'm going to give you some quick statistics on who's participating, how many, from where. I'll show you an example of tangible opportunities to collaborate that are being created and disseminated through our platform. I'll show you results from Preserve and other linked projects that are being showcased through our platform to potential stakeholders, investors, people who want to engage with them. And generally how you can join the community and follow along, and hopefully in the future you'll want to participate in the opportunities that we are creating. So if you are a member of CrowdHelix and you go to crowdhelix.com/register, you will find your organization in the drop-down menu among the other member organizations. If you are not, then simply type in Preserve and create a password and sign in, and you'll be able to access the platform as part of the Circular Plastics Helix community and the Preserve project. If you access in this way and you're not a member, there are some limitations to what you can do, but generally the whole platform is open to you to explore the opportunities to collaborate and engage with the vast majority of them. And just signing in. This is a live demo, by the way. I'm not using any slides. This is the actual platform itself. And every opportunity you'll see here is up there right now for you to engage in. Before I dive into the platform and the posts, some numbers here. This is our collaboration platform. We launched this version of it in 2016. Crowd Helix has been around for about 10 years. We are based legally in the UK and in Ireland. Opportunities. This refers to the number of posts on our platform from researchers looking to engage, offering, or seeking expertise. We have over 13,700 users from 728 organizations. These are universities, research centers, startups, SMEs, like I said, NGOs, policymakers, large corporations, anyone looking to really engage in this type of community and public and private funding. We have members based in 57 countries, the most recent coming from the newly associated New Zealand to Horizon Europe. So opportunities are opportunities to collaborate across all areas of interest, with the first two today coming from the Prague University of Economics and Business and Sabancı University in Turkey. You'll see some of them are looking to coordinate, some of them are offering their expertise. It's Crowd Helix's job to make this happen. We're going to focus, obviously, on the circular plastics community here, which is one of 50 helixes that we have created. These are populated by individuals and organizations looking to collaborate. We're going to select the circular plastics helix. The platform is recommending other relevant communities like circular industry or food or materials. I'm going to select materials as well, and we'll see what's been happening. What is an example of a tangible opportunity to collaborate within these areas of interest. There was one that I thought was really interesting to show. This came in a few days ago. This was posted by the Technological University of the Shannon Midlands in Ireland. In this case, they're looking to take the coordination role on a Horizon Europe Cluster 4 call. The deadline is in February, that next big round that we're all kind of looking at. It's an innovation action. This has been posted in the Circular Plastics Helix, which is the circular plastics community linked directly to preserve and manufacturing. So everyone on our platform interested in these areas has been notified. They're seeking collaborators, they are coordinating, so this is a really good opportunity. They're seeking specific expertise in food packaging, flexible packaging, biopolymer, etc. These are expertise keywords that are on our platform that will make it more searchable. They will feed into our machine learning. It will recommend potential partners. It's a good way to search across the platform as well for expertise. They elaborate a little bit on the consortium they're looking to put together. What kind of expertise maybe do they have to offer? You could engage here by leaving a comment below, like all of these individuals are doing. This is open collaboration happening in real time, going down and down from across Europe and beyond. If you wanted to be a little bit more private, you could send a direct private message through our platform about collaborating with Dr. Colbert, or you could share the opportunity with a colleague. So I could share it directly with my colleague, Bianca, so I can make sure she sees it. So this is an example of an opportunity to collaborate on Crowd Helix in areas of interest relevant to you, directly coming out of this impact and collaboration community we've built specifically for the Preserve project. And you can kind of check them out from other organizations like KU Leuven and like University of Strathclyde and Brunel University, all of these organizations looking to build partnerships. If we take a closer look at the circular plastics helix itself, well, this is the community. There are 3 ways we can engage with it. We've already looked at a couple opportunities to collaborate, most of them Horizon, not always, but most of them are Horizon. This is the really important part for Preserve. These are key exploitable results coming out of projects that we want to showcase to potential stakeholders with various TRL levels. University of Venice went a little crazy last week posting, which is excellent to see, but we can also scroll down. We can check out results coming out of Preserve specifically, TR level of 5 or of 4 or of 1. We want to showcase these to organizations and individuals who want to invest in them, IP generation, market uptake, financing, future collaborative partnerships. So Crowd Helix on one side, consortia building on the other side of the coin, showcasing key exploitable results to where they need to be shown. take a step back. Okay, we have events. This is one of a number of events that we've held in this area of interest, the one happening today. Crowd Helix hosts dissemination communications events, brokerage events, and networking events for their member organizations. We held an event last week in Dublin that was mainly focused on Cluster 4 and Cluster 6 consortia building. So these are two main types of events that we host. If we click View Helix, well, this is the actual community. This is the landing page. Why was this community created? Some background, some scope. This community actually first launched as part of a Horizon 2020 project called Multicycle. The work that we did through this community, some of the matchmaking we did, helped lead to the formation of the Preserve Consortium. That's one of the reasons why we have this community. We've mapped over 600 researchers from 45 countries to the Circular Plastics Helix. That is the reach of the posting and collaboration that you can achieve. Again, events, linked projects, and then we have the sort of major players within the community that are interested in collaborating. They've put their logo here because they want you to reach out to them. They want you to send a direct message to maybe their senior leadership in the EU team, or one of the people who are taking a leadership role on one of their departments or faculties, which they've profiled. And I'm just picking on Copenhagen because they're right here on the front page and because they have an excellent profile. So that's essentially how Crowd Helix works. It's results, it's opportunities to collaborate. Organizations join Crowd Helix, businesses and multinationals, large and small, and academic institutions. Every single month we profile a little bit more success. Our members have a track record of just over 8.8 billion in Horizon programs, but the way that we really quantify success is through case studies. And you can come here and you can check them out. They're coming from businesses, they're coming from widening participation regions, associated countries, they're coming from large multinationals and SMEs, and of course universities in non-widening regions as well. If you'd like to learn more about Crowd Helix, then I would be delighted to speak with you after my talk or at the end of the event while we're networking. So don't be shy. Come here, check out the opportunities happening in the areas of interest relevant to you. If you even know a specific call for a tender you want to look at, for example, the last presentation touched on Cluster 6, well, let's type in Horizon Cluster 6 and see what is happening. Who are building partnerships? Who need expertise for these specific calls and deadlines coming up soon. So that's Crowd Helix, that's the Circular Plastics Helix. I welcome any and all questions that you have. Once again, if you are a member of Crowd Helix, crowdhelix.com/register. Find your organization in the drop-down menu, or if you're not a member, then just type in Preserve and make an account. We send you a confirmation link and you can access. So. Thanks a lot for your time and attention. Are there any questions?
Just remember to mention that they can go
Oh,
directly.
sure. You can scan that QR code if you are so inclined, or you can take my advice and type Preserve into the registration page. It's up to you.
I have one question
Sure.
regarding the actual role on Crowd Helix
Sure.
at the international level, let's say. So here you can find, as for instance, in European projects, so a lot of European profiles, universities. But do you guys have a more open, let's say, coverage in terms of not only, of course, European projects, but which as well can be, for example, in these calls that they require some, or they encourage some international cooperation, for example, with China or Japan or the US?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a good question, and you would be absolutely forgiven for thinking that we're an EU-only Horizon platform because it's kind of how we designed things about 10 years ago. Obviously, now we are branching outside of this. Crowd Helix is open to any tangible, relevant, open opportunity to collaborate between academia and industry or otherwise, public or private funding. It does not have to be Horizon. Just the majority of the content coming through is driven by large academic institutions with a keen interest in European public funding, as well as national. We have members in 57 countries, as I mentioned. New Zealand associated this summer, so already 3 universities out of their 8 have come on board. The University of Botswana joined Crowd Helix a few weeks ago. We work with a number of organizations based in the Middle East, in South Africa as well, a few in South America. The United States tends to focus on their own funding schemes, but you could absolutely connect with organizations and links we have there. And we're all crossing our fingers for Canada's association sometime next year, as well as Japan. And so we're already working hard to identify the key stakeholders and to build those links in time for the signature to come down so we can start connecting from day one. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions?
It's a very short one. In fact, it is very interesting, this fact, because communication and sharing knowledge is always key. My question is just if you know or if you have contact with the circular economy stakeholder platform, which is a well-established platform, in fact. Indeed, under the EU institutions, you may understand the message comes from me, so that's why I'm talking about that. But indeed, I think that this is a good place where to share best practices. It's not exactly with the same purpose as yours, but can be that there are some good links to make.
Do you mean like an actual technical link, as in linking the two platforms together, where they could cross-post things, or just promoting similar opportunities?
I would say just have a look and find your way, because indeed there are lots of associations, but also research centers, also enterprises. So it's already a place where circular economy people go. Not only plastic. This is indeed a specialty of your tool, but it may be that there is something to understand and learn from each other.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a lot of content on that platform that we would love to have cross-posted to Crowd Helix, because we're trying to facilitate collaboration and post results. We are a private company versus things funded by the European Commission. So we have a commercial interest as well as a collaboration interest. So I'm not going to pretend like we don't. But we also wouldn't consider a platform like that to be a competitor, because at the end of the day, that type of collaboration and that type of dissemination is key to helping our members connect and succeed. So it's a tool, it's an add-on that we can use in both respects. And I mentioned before, the Circular Plastics Helix is one of 50 communities. We have an impact acceleration model under Section 2.2 that fits into a lot of bids, and is why we have 50 communities. So I would encourage everyone here to check out the other platform that's been, yeah.
Any more questions? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thanks for
very
your attention.
much.
Thanks.
Okay. Remember to join the Crowd Helix platform. And then for the next session, we'll feature a panel discussion moderated by Peter Van Gool from our partner Sodpack. Peter is an experienced leader in medical device packaging, actively contributing to communities like Kilmer Innovations and the Sterile Barrier Association. And he will lead our next session.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll use that later on. Yeah, we'll turn it off maybe. Can I lay it down here, or? Yeah, there you go. So anyway, thank you for giving the opportunity to speak here. Before we start, I'd like to start with a question poll. And because I know that you people online and you guys are here, you have questions. We just noticed in Pigeonhole that many questions come in. Unfortunately, we cannot answer to all of them, but we need you. So if you just scan this QR code, and there will be a question that when considering the transition to sustainable and bio-based, biodegradable food packaging, what is the area that you think deserves the highest priority? So we would really appreciate, well, I'll start introducing a little bit why I'm standing here today, to answer that question and what we're going to do. In the end, we're going to have a conversation, and we're going to go back to this poll, and we're going to ask our panelists what they think about what you think. How about that? So a little bit about myself. I am Peter Van Gool. I am the Business Development Manager with Supac Medica. I'm actually an independent business unit. You see that here, the Medica section. The Supercook also covers for the food industry. For different industries, we provide packaging materials. On the right-hand side, you see there all the manufacturing capability, what you have and what you see, and we have about 1,800 employees, and we serve a lot of countries across the globe. Now the thing is, the reason why I'm standing here today, and I'm very proud to work with this company, I heard, and it's the reality, like our executive leadership already told in 1990, you just don't throw things away. You just think about that. And I can proudly say that sustainability is really in the DNA of our company. Look at our mission. Our mission states healthy planet, healthy people, and healthy growth. I think those things goes along quite well. And I need, you know, I'm proud to work for this organization. We try to do that through expertise, of course, the quality of our products and services, and also sustainable business processes. There's a little bit of footprint. What you see, we already did sustainability reports. We started with that about 10 years ago already. ESG programs already really rooted into our organization for many, many years. Yeah, and then, well, some of you may know the science-based targets, we committed to that, and then many more things that we do about sustainability. I want to focus more on the panelists in a moment, so don't want to talk about these things too heavily. But I'm proud to work for this company, and I'm proud to have a discussion with you guys here. So, if you look about the different backgrounds, we started with first presentation with Christina, where she was talking about, you know, what they do with our university. We heard about Sylvia from the European Commission talking about what the activities already, what they're already doing to enable bio-based and biodegradable materials for the future. And then the last presentation, Crowd Helix, where they were showing like the platform that they are providing us to enable collaboration, because in the end, you cannot do it alone. We got to do this together. And I think this is the main point that I took from today also, that do this together, we're happy to do that. So I'd like to, also for the people online, you see there there's going to be a panel discussion, and you can click the QR code there on the right. And now it's a different one, and that different one is you can ask your questions, and then we will be able to also ask your questions. You can, you know, I will post your questions towards the panelists later on. So I would like to introduce my first panelist, Kees Georgiasse. He's a Senior Director of Innovation PLA and Bioplastics, Total Energies Carbion. Experienced R&D leader with over 20 years of renowned global companies like Philips and Total Energies Carbion. He excels in innovation, leading diverse teams internationally, and specializing in strategic portfolio management, IP, and business development. And Kees holds a PhD in polymer science and master's in chemical engineering. Kees, may I welcome you to join the stage. So the second person I'd like to introduce is we got a Dutch community here, which is a good thing. Charles van Rij, also a Dutchman, global lead for packaging, cradle-to-cradle products of Innovation Institute in Amsterdam. And he focuses on verifying safe, circular, and responsibly made products. With extensive experience in packaging, he drives sustainability by fostering connections and encouraging sustainable practices in the packaging and printing industries. He's dedicated to overcoming industry challenges for sustainable packaging solutions, and recently he inspired me on a conference with his engaging presentation where he was talking about, we think circular, but we're not that circular yet, so we need to do more as a community. So Charles, may I welcome you. Now thirdly, I'd like to introduce Christina. For those that have not heard her presentation yet, she's a research and group leader Sustainable Packaging Institute at Alpstadt-Sigmaringen University in Germany. With a doctorate in food microbiology, she's actively participating in several multi-international research project in Preserve, and she acts as a scientific and technical coordinator. I'm very happy to have you on stage here, Christina. And then lastly, I'd like to invite Silvia Maltagliati, who was already on the stage for those that were not there yet. She's a policy officer at the European Commission, Doctorate General Research and Innovation. She's working in the unit of circular economy and bio-based systems. She works in the European Commission strategies and policy supporting research projects in the European Union in the field of bio-based industrial sectors, with a special focus on the environmental sustainability challenges of supply chains and value chains in those sectors, and contributes to the research and innovation work programmes of Horizon Europe Cluster 6 Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture and Environment, and of the Circular Bio-Based Europe Joint Undertaking. She holds a master's degree in physics and a PhD in industrial engineering. That was a whole mouthful, but thank you. Please join the stage. So now I would like to, you can give some microphones to the panelists. So, well, the things we talked about, like any European projects, that the consortia are bringing together companies of different sides of the value chain. That's what we strive to do here. We have a good representation of different people covering policies, universities, organizations, you know, and companies that are in this value chain together. And the main, the main focuses are the variety of the key in designing the future for bio-based packaging. So we know about the Preserve project. Christina was talking about that quite well. We know the latest results. We know what the European Commission is doing. So I'm excited to actually start the conversation. And maybe I want to have a quick question for you, Kees. So in your opinion, which direction are we moving right now in the field of bio-based sustainable packaging?
Well, thanks for the question, first of all, and thanks for inviting me over here. Can you hear me or not? Is it on?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I have to stick it in my mouth. Sorry for that. Anyway, where we are moving, I think we have been looking at circular economy a lot from the mechanical recycling perspective over the last couple of years, which is important, but that has certain limitations also in food contact applications, for instance, in food packaging. We've been looking at options that are more into the industrial compostability type of direction, where we think as an industry that organic recycling, compostable materials, is a part of the solution. It's not the full solution, but it's definitely also a part. And I think there we could need a little bit support. And we think also chemical recycling is another way of making things circular. And chemical recycling is not only for polyolefins, it's also applicable to bio-based materials. And also there, I think we need a framework that allows chemical recycling also for bio-based materials to be supported as a viable alternative to other ways of closing the materials loop, basically. So that's some of the topics that we have been working on as an industry, I think. And there's a lot more. We need to design for functionality, taking into mind what the end of life of a product will be and how we then best serve a sustainable climate with that solution. And I'm a material agnostic. It says polymer science in my CV, but basically any material scientist will tell you it doesn't matter which material you use, you have to make sure it fulfills all the functionalities that you're designing it for. And I think we should, as an industry, as a scientific community, aim for those solutions that make most sense. And sometimes it's maybe paper, huh? Maybe it's a plastic, maybe it's something else.
Yeah, and to the extent I think, and also what you're saying is not about being exclusive or pointing fingers, about being inclusive. Some of the things are at its infancy. Some of the technology we already have are more mature. But looking at the bigger picture, I think that's a very good comment what you just made. Thank you very much. And maybe moving to you, Christina, I don't know what you think the directions we're moving right now in the field of bio-based sustainable packaging from the perspective what you see from with your university and maybe also within Preserve.
Well, I think that we will see a lot of innovations pointing towards monomaterials. I think that will be one point in the next years. That may be critical when thinking about food packaging and thinking about that the packaging should protect the food at its best. But that's one thing that I see, monomaterials, but also a lot of innovation in the research level on natural polymers. I think we will hear and see a lot on that. Generally, there will be a lot of innovation. I think we need more innovation, but it's not just innovation, it's about scaling up. And I think we're now realizing that we need to push more on that. And I'm curious to see what will exactly happen, because it's really tricky. As Keith said, we need to consider the whole value chain. We need to consider the recycling in terms of material recovery, but also in terms of capacity. I think that's also one issue that Europe needs to work on and will work on, as we just don't have any other chance.
Okay, thank you very much for your, and maybe Sylvia, I just saw that you also wanted to make a comment on this particular question. Which direction you think we are moving right now in the field of bio-based sustainable packaging?
Yes, indeed, I listened to the previous comments and I must say that I fully agree with the two concepts that you shared, that in fact recyclability, recycling, and not only mechanically recycling, but all the kind of different techniques must be key. I also fully believe in innovation, and that innovation can bring, in fact, solutions. And I hope that, in fact, innovators are ready to upscale their best ideas. I would say that there is maybe another concept that it's absolutely linked to what it was already said, that is the reduction, basically, of the material use, so the kind of dematerialization of our economy. That means that, of course, we need to know how to recycle things at the very end of their life, but we need to reuse them to reduce the material used even for packaging, so to decrease the weight of packaging, which is something that you already well know and already heard. But I think that this is another direction, and we saw that at least in the proposal for the regulation on packaging waste, there is a big space for the reuse, refill in specific sectors. So this may be, we already see in the markets something, in the supermarket, something happening that we can refill. The European Parliament, for example, also focused on the ban of single-use plastics or small bottles of shampoo or soap in the hotels. So there is a wave of different things that will lead us to a better market of plastic and packaging, but plastic is one of the main concerns. And I would say that, again, also consumers will play a role. So information to consumers will be key to understand also how to do the separate collection of things that may be recycled. And in fact, you're right, compostability is something that is coming more and more in the picture. And indeed, for some specific applications can be a solution, especially if we think about compostability similar to a concept of circularity and recycling. Although you may share this concern that in Europe, composting facilities are not always, say, harmonized, and and working with the same parameters. But I don't know, and these are the comments to say further to the other colleagues. So, thank you.
Yeah, Charles.
Yeah, what we see as an institute, we certify products, and what we see is that there are a lot of initiatives in the market of companies who really focus on becoming more sustainable and less packaging in the market. But what you also see is that there's a lot of energy put in recyclable materials. But what in the end happens, there is no system in place what brings it back to a recycled material. So if we don't have the system, we also cannot get this renewable material, recycled material. So this is there's still a lot of work to do to get the system closed. 100% close in many cases will not happen, but at least that we close up the system and that we get circulars in specific areas there, so that we can recycle materials. And first of all, is also reduce, reuse, and then recycle. And yeah, that's a very important thing. And waste, demand is creating waste. And what we see also that the way we live for the individual, we have to be critical on ourselves in the way we enjoy convenience, because also convenience is really creating a lot of demand, and demand is creating waste.
Thank you very much, Charles. And I think it's also about, change management. A lot of things are changing for us. If you got to look at waste, I think the better word for waste could be new feedstock, renewed feedstock. How can you reuse that? I think you also touched on that, Christina. You got to be mindful of the application where it's used for. Particularly, for example, you look at pharmaceutical or medical market where I heavily operate, some materials just don't work. And so you got, but in the meantime, when we're thinking about how can we make this ready for the future, we have to be inclusive. We have to collaborate with everyone in the value chain. I can create great results, but if the European policies are not supporting that, what are we going to do? So I'm very happy with activities that are going on there already, but collaboration is, I think that's the key word here. So, but we just briefly touched on those things, on activities, what you see, and now I actually wanted to actually go to a second question about some things that we just noticed. I want to ask that to you, Charles, if you're okay with that. What are the current, from your opinion, what are the current challenges and opportunities to successfully make transition to a bio-based and circular packaging? And for example, I think, Christina, you were talking about that already. About 60%, or was it 64, I think, of the consumer products need to be with bio-based packaging materials in the future. And by 2030, by the way.
Yeah.
No, the recycling rate needs to be by 70%, which is currently at 60-something on average.
Okay.
That's rather high figure. Yeah, in order to become successful, it's really important. Yeah, I can answer this on different levels. I mean, on macro level, we got the governments. They should be united on their policy and get their policies through, and hopefully they get this quickly through, because they guide it. I mean, the industry and everybody, we're not quick enough to make those changes to more sustainable solutions. So on macro level, we really, governments has to really make quicker steps now that the legislation has come in place. On meso level, we see the industries. Unfortunately, the bio-based industry has a very strong competitor in fossil-based industry, because they're very rich and they have a very good product to deliver with a lot of experience. And bio-based, in a lot of cases, is still in development and also have to scale up. So that's on meso level. On micro level, I mean, the companies individually are, you see a lot of initiatives, company become more sustainable, leaderships, they embed it in their strategy. But an important thing is there also transparency, and transparency among competitors, if we really want to make steps. And transparency among competitors is very difficult, because it's often your competitive advantage, the way you make money, the way you can pay the wages. So it is very easy said, yes, be transparent, but that's a conflict there. So that's a huge challenge. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And then, yeah, and on the individual one, I mean, I just spoke about the system who can deliver. We're all part of the system. Even when you work in governments, or you're a housewife, or when you're a truck driver, it doesn't matter. You're all part of the system, and everybody has to be aware of it. And I think we're already in a transition, moving that we get more and more aware about sustainability, and yeah, and that's a challenge also for the bioplastics industry.
So looking at these challenges, what do you then maybe see as a huge opportunity for us? Really, the collaboration and the competition really starting to work on this, maybe on consortiums as such, working on these things together?
Yeah, working together is very good, and I think the industry should strongly collaborate. I mean, you see that on the other side also, in the other industries they collaborate, and be clever with it, and hopefully support on governmental legislations, do a good lobby there, and that it gets quick into place. And yeah, and then also, yeah, really think about subsidies there, because why are the subsidies in certain areas where we all think they shouldn't be there?
Got it. No, that's clear. So maybe I want to move it towards you, Kay. So what do you think the current challenges, but also the opportunities to successfully make the transition to a bio-based and circular packaging?
At the risk of echoing you a bit too much, I think a few points were mentioned which I fully subscribe to. I mean, and I think also Sylvia mentioned it, and there was a question to Sylvia where it was already brought to the table. I think we had the Renewable Energy Directive, where a target was placed on, we think, typically biofuels should have a certain percentage of bio content. Why don't we do that for bio-based materials, or like an energy directive, but then for materials directive? We need, or we want by 20-something to have a 30% bio-based content in everything that we use. It's also referring to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the nice loop with as circular as possible, but whatever we lose in one way or the other, we feed the circle with bio-based materials and recycle 90+% of everything. That could be, well, that's maybe a bit visionary, but I think let's make that work, and that needs guidelines, regulation, legislation, some subsidies, or maybe not subsidies for the bad guys, let's say. And that needs a united front, and I'm looking at some of my contacts in European bioplastics. That's in Europe. There are other associations as well worldwide, and I think we need to speak with really one voice and represent the industry to make an impact also in Brussels or in other jurisdictions, of course. And so that's crucial, to speak with one voice and put yourself some, well, ugly, big, hairy targets. Huh?
Well, that's the role. You know, if you got a target to focus on, you got something to work towards, and I think that's a good thing. So, by the way, also for the people there online, and also for you guys, if you think right now that that this drives a question for you that you would like to have answered, scan the QR code, post your question, and we're gonna deal with your question later on, and also here in the room. So yeah, but then also maybe I'd like to ask for you, Christina, maybe the same thing about what do you see, things that you haven't heard yet, what do you see as the current challenges and opportunities to successfully make the transition to a bio-based and circular packaging?
Well, I think Charles and Kees wrapped up the overall challenges pretty clear. So I also see a lot of, well, from a researcher point of view, it's always, we have great ideas. We like to think outside the box, but it's always about scaling up. It's about processing. It's about implementing into a running system. And that's often the tricky point, to really implement it at a running system that does not cause too much investments needed. So I think one part is also money. And that's one issue, so to say. I mean, money is always an issue, but in that perspective, because a lot of new materials need a bit more fine-tuning, need a bit more pampering, a bit more understanding of how it works to make it a scalable material. That's one challenge, but it's also one opportunity, because with all these new materials, you can build great things that will lead you away from the dependence on the fossil-based sources. So that's both, I think, a challenge and opportunity. What's also a challenge is when considering the implementation is consumer awareness. Because the one thing is, okay, we researchers have a great idea, we have a great material. The material is processable, it's scalable, it's recyclable in one way or the other, so it's ideally perfect material, we pack something and the product is safe, but what if the consumer don't accept it? So that's also one thing that we always have to keep in mind, which is a challenge, but also an opportunity to challenge ourselves during the innovation. But yeah, consumer is also key. Besides anything else, it's part of the system.
Do you believe that we have a lack of education towards our consumers in the widest?
So we are currently working on a poll on consumer perception on bio-based materials. And also with our students, we see that a lot that we really need to explain, what does bio-based material mean? What is the distinction between bio-based, biodegradable? What does biodegradable really mean? And so I think there's also a study that was really astonishing, that they produced biodegradable plastic bottles. And they had a survey, and then they talked to the people in the interviews, and they handed over this bio-based bottle, and they told them, you can dispose it in the organic waste. It will just go to the bio-waste and to the bio-waste treatment facility, put it there. At the end of the interview, they go, dispose the bottle to the recycling bin. Because it's a plastic, or like it feels like plastic, so it cannot be that it's compostable. So I think, there is a lack of education. There is a lack of ability to really transition and transfer the knowledge in easy language to everybody, so that the people understand why is it more important, and also to get the people that are very conscious about packaging, why maybe paper is not always the best option, or why buying things not packed, depending on the product and the time frame you intend to consume it, unpacked is not the best option. I think we are working in a very complex field, and we need to do something also together to engage the public, to engage like the normal people that don't understand or don't know about the different materials. So it's a clear yes, we need more education on that.
Very good point, thank you very much. So maybe from your standpoint, Sylvia, from the European Commission, would you, so what do you maybe see as current challenges and opportunity to successfully make the transition to bio-based packaging?
In circular.
Yeah, and circular.
The fact is that I think that bio-based and circular, and I think that this is also a well-known concept, has now a challenge in the flows, in the amount, in the sense that indeed, as they are still at the level of a niche market, it is not yet fully affordable to recycle bio-based packaging. And this is one point that is a kind of a vicious loop, because of course if you don't break somewhere, this loop you never enter in the way that the markets of bio-based packaging increases, so that there is more and more bio-based packaging to be recycled, and then finally it is affordable to recycle this bio-based packaging. Anyway, I really hope that innovation will come very soon to make things even easier and to make recyclable different kinds of plastic from bio-based and fossil-based. Maybe, for example, improving the capacity of the sorting schemes or something like that. But indeed, the scaling up, not only from the low TRL up to the markets, but also scaling up in terms of quantity, is a problem of the bio-based sectors in general. And this is something that can be, say, possibly improved also maybe with more information to consumers in order to improve the trust of consumers. But still, we need some terminology to understand what is bio-based, because so far there is no clear answer, and we don't have a clear method, harmonized method to quantify the bio-based content, neither to say which is the threshold for a product to be claimed bio-based, the threshold of the real bio-based content to be claimed bio-based. But anyway, the bio-based products are a really variety of things. And about targets, in fact, there is at least in the communication on the carbon cycle, sustainable carbon cycle, there is a target of having at least 20% of the of all the chemicals sourced from biological resources. So by 2030. So at least there is an idea that we should have a target. And it's not by chance that is in that communication, because maybe what we should do, in fact, is to understand how to measure the carbon removal potential of the bio-based materials. When they are circular, they can embed carbon in a way that is not released in the atmosphere. So on that, I see that it's challenging to do this, but it's still a way to go through this sustainable carbon concept on one side. And then, of course, there is also, you well know, the proposal by the European Parliament on the revision on the packaging waste regulation. They adopted a position, maybe also thanks to the information had by the stakeholders in this sector, and now they propose to have, in fact, also a bio-based content as counting as the recycled content in the packaging. So this may be the way. About subsidies, it's a national level that is decided, cannot be done. But of course, if these targets are in place in the legislation, I can imagine that someone else can act also in the direction of the subsidies, but I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm almost wanting to get to my last bigger question. In the meantime, I'm asking that if it would be possible to put that, while we're having the discussion on the third question, is it possible to put the results of the polling on the screen later on? While you strive to work on that, I will have a conversation with them. Oh, great. So we're going to discuss these in a moment. But do you see there on the right top corner, you can still contribute by scanning that QR code. The last question I actually want to ask a few folks. Maybe start with you, Charles, this time. So all what the goals, what we talked about, transitioning to a bio-based circular packaging. Do you think you suffer from any research and innovation, maybe regulatory or other? Do you see any market gaps here? And if there is really a market gap, do you think there may be a way to overcome them, to bridge that gap?
From a market gap, I think there is a lot of research and a lot of organizations do a lot of efforts, and they all do this in their different islands. And I think there is this gap is between the islands, figuratively, but also in reality. I mean, because there's a lot of research and also within companies, but also on universities and all institutes, that the knowledge we gain, there should be a way that we get platforms to connect it. Because what we also see is when we certify a product, a part of the certification is the material health. So we analyze a product if there are no restricted substances in it of materials which can be harmful for people or planet. And we do this in the value chain. So all the products which go in the end products are analyzed. And what we see is that in this certification process, a lot of companies don't want to share information, and which I understand, because this is a competitive advantage, because they show the details how they operate. But if we cannot break through this, or that we could maybe do it, that there is a way that we could isolate the data, but it is free to access, then we could boost sustainability. But I don't have the answer, but there is a problem, a gap.
Yeah, there must be a balance indeed to really achieve innovation, because that's what we're talking about here. Yeah. So maybe Kees, for you. Do you think that the transition to a bio-based circular packaging suffer from any type of research and innovation, regulatory or market gaps? And one of those gaps, maybe you also have some ideas to, like Charles, to overcome them?
On the circularity part, which is maybe not the real topic today, but definitely it's bio-based and circular, so recycling in its widest form is topic of conversation. My point of view would be that actually all the technology that we need is already there. We are very capable of sorting out, collecting, washing, separating all kind of waste streams. That should not be the problem. That technology does exist. What is difficult is for people to extract value out of that stream, about this, in that value chain, which is a circular one, where you as a consumer produce post-consumer waste, and that needs to be treated, and then it needs to be separated, and then whether it's paper, glass, plastics, polyolefins or bioplastics, in whatever shape or form, in principle, we can sort that. But why is it not happening? Part of the answer was given by Sylvia, because it's just, for bioplastics, it's too small. So it's just not enough volume yet. That's a bit of a catch-22. Chicken and egg type of story, and where I think the European Union could help is to really incentivize industrial investment to make this systemic approach work. That everybody in that circle can make a decent amount of money when taking back feedstock to reprocess it into a new product and then put it back in the value chain or in the production and sales chain again. And it's hampering, the machine is hampering there. I know it's possible, I've seen it. There's very good technology out there. There was also, you mentioned, how do we make sure that the different partners in that circular chain have the right information at their disposal. I mean, we can use blockchain for that. That is also being developed today, where there's sort of a material passport, which basically says this product is made like this, this, and this, and that. These are the ingredients, this is the layer thicknesses, and everything is in there. But that information is only available to those that need to know, so not your competitors. Yeah? And that is doable. That technology does exist, and there's curve code, and there's the Holy Grail type of sorting and near infrared. It's all there.
Yeah, one of the things because I think Christina, you touched on that as well. Some of the, some of it already exists, but also some of the material packaging structures are like multi-layered structures. So, and I am sure that for certain applications you can go to monostructures. At the moment when you have monostructures, you don't have the issue of delamination, and to prevent it for incineration, well, they use the sexy word energy recovery. But yeah, no, that's a good point. But still, for me personally, I think that are we to a certain degree mature? Yes. However, I still believe this whole thing, the connection of all these dots, is very much in its infancy. So, and if we seek for collaboration, then we can use certain technologies, agree that are already out there, to implement that for an innovative, for a better balanced future. So, conscious of the time, maybe, Christina, did you want to make a quick comment on maybe that you see as a gap, and that you think, well, this is a quick one that are really, this is how we could overcome it?
Yeah, maybe I don't have a solution, but one issue that we often see is when we discuss about sustainability, we always kind of like not really touch the issue of how to measure sustainability. Everybody's just talking about to be more sustainable, but to be more sustainable, we need some measure of comparing things one with each other. And of course we have LCA, and of course there's an ISO form for that, but at the end of the day, I can take any LCA data from, I don't know, biopaste, PET from manufacturer E, but I cannot compare it with the LCA from another manufacturer because I don't know like what parts they, do they cradle to cradle, cradle to gate, cradle to grave? I don't know. Yeah. So that's one point that is very, very tricky when talking about sustainability, that ideally we don't have a harmonized measure of sustainability. And in food packaging, we also have the problem that, yeah, maybe a material is not as sustainable as another option. Maybe A is better than, not worse than B, but it preserves the food better, which means that at the end of the day, we will generate less food waste. And it's always more resources in the packed product, especially when considering food, than in the package itself, so in the packaging materials. So that means if we just take the LCA, we will just compare the materials, but not the function of the material. But the function of the material is also part of the sustainability. So ideally, that's one point that needs to be worked on, and I know that colleagues are working on that, to have a more harmonized system. Maybe not like, okay, you have to do this or that, but to have a scheme, some sort of certification scheme where you can at least depict or reflect like, okay, what flows are they considering? What are they considering functionalities? Are they just looking at the material generation, or to get an idea and to be more able to have a comparison than rather just looking at data and thinking like, yeah, could be.
Yeah. And Sylvia, I thought that you wanted to also make a comment on this?
Yes, very quickly indeed on that, because in fact I agree with you that we should have harmonized methods to measure sustainability. And this made me think about one point of the sustainability. I don't want to raise a very big discussion on that, but in fact when one day many products and materials will be bio-based. Indeed, I think that we will have already solved the problem of the feedstock, because also I think that the cost of the biological resources for the bio-based industry is a bit different from the oil sector, and there is always the discussion about the competition of the biological resources for many in sectors, including, as said, the food. I know that this is, another layer of discussion, but just to add these points of view. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and also looking at the people there online and the people here, I just quickly want to take the panel the question, the polling that we did in the beginning. If I look at maybe who wants to make give a quick feedback on this one? Because you see the regulatory landscape that really deserves priority.
Yes, and in fact, I may imagine we also discussed about that. On one side, I believe in this. On the other side, as I believe also much in innovation, you know that regulation and laws always come after the innovation has been already developed and has become old, I would say, not innovation anymore. So I would say that anyway, innovation must run its way and must look ahead. This is my first comment, and then I would like also to comment the last one, this 6.8, so the Cinderella of the pool, because indeed, I'm not surprised, but instead, I think that if, for example, bio-based products are taken within the public procurement criteria, could be an idea how to promote them. I don't know if this makes sense. These are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to have a...
Maybe regarding that innovation always needs to be ahead of regulatory framework. Of course I agree, but it's also true that when we consider where are we going, I mean, we like to research, but we also need money for that. So, you know, it's always like finding investors, so to say, like regarding the EU as investor or like other ministries as an investor. You know, it also needs to fit. They will not invest in something that is completely against the regulatory framework. So it's always a bit of, yeah, we need to be ahead of time, but also we need to work in the current regulatory framework in order to be able to get funded and paid.
Thank you very much. I just for the consciousness of time, how much we still have left. We have 5 minutes. Do we have some questions coming in also? And maybe I can try to check them if my internet works. Oh yeah, maybe someone in the room has a question for our panelists here. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying, but somehow I'm not.
Yes. Maybe just to continue on the innovation and the regulation. From my point of view, I think polyolefins are an innovation, and they have already had a long time to develop the innovation. And I don't know if maybe this should be more regulated. Yeah, I would like to hear comments on this.
You mean that polymers that are already well placed on the market should be already part of the regulation? Kind of.
Yes, yes. From the comment about that innovation should be ahead of the regulation. I mean, I think in that case, the innovation on the fossil-based polymers is ahead of the regulation.
Yes, in fact, in the regulation you can find, in case, already well-developed bio-based products and chemicals. This is exactly what is there. So maybe not that much, but we mentioned some parts where, in fact, it is in the communication on sustainable carbon cycle, it is mentioned, the idea that we need to have more bio-based content in chemicals and chemical products in general, which means also polyolefins. So we don't need maybe specifically something dedicated to the single polymer, right, to be included. But I don't know if I answer your question, I may not.
Yeah, but I think also that there are the companies who are producing polyolefins, I mean, there are huge investment been done, and they just keep on producing because the demand is still there. So it doesn't go automatically. But if the future, it's not a bright light, then companies look for alternatives to invest in, because that's an important part of the current direction of companies with fossil-based materials. And I think it never will be replaced by bioplastics in total. I mean, it will always be, in my belief, outnumbered by the fossil-based industry. But then there are better and closed or semi-closed loops to recycle it. And I think there's a big gain on that part.
Thank you very much. For the conscious of time, I have room for one more question. So
Okay,
please, yeah.
Biodegradable, bio-based polymers are, especially bio-based polymers, are more expensive than the fossil ones. Sometimes even 3-4 times. So to build a plant, to make a huge investment, we need, as a producers, or future producers like my company, we need incentives. So sometimes I don't understand I'm sorry to say that, European Commission, because, for example, PHA, it's a natural polymer, but it's not in the sense of a single-use plastic directive, if I am not wrong.
Yeah, right.
So this is natural because we can find it even in the environment. But it's natural. It's not a natural polymer for the law. So I feel confused, and I think many people do.
On that, indeed, there was also the publication of the guidelines by ECHA and by the Commission explaining exactly that natural polymers, in the specific case in which they demonstrate having been chemically modified, they are not natural anymore. And in any case, for the single-use plastic directive, PHA is in fact considered not natural polymer. This was written really in bold letters. After that, I would say that the single-use plastic directive is about single use. We are now talking a lot about being circular, being recyclable, be reusable, refillable. So indeed, the single-use plastics directive would like to not to ban any single-use plastic items, but this is kind of the underneath concept that in fact single-use per se is not really bad, is not really good for our world. It's something that we should phase out, having single-use things. And this is a kind of a cross-cutting requirement for fossil-based plastics and bio-based, whatever is the source. This was, say, the philosophy of this directive. And then, yes, it's true that PHA, for some people, especially for the people in the sector, is a natural polymer. For the Commission, it was defined not natural polymer. But at the end, why limiting PHA for the single-use plastic items production? This is the question. How is that important? Should be more important to have reusable and recycled things?
So thank you very much for this conversation. I'd like to maybe very quick, very short closing statement for each one of you.
Yeah, just want to reflect on the question on bio-based and compostable. I think also it's very important that it's not to compare straightly with the current existing polyolefin plastics, but you should also approach the market from a different way, especially when you're in compostable packaging. It should be more that you sell a system and a product which is behind it, and not just selling it and afterwards the system should take care of it, because you have to create a system to be successful with compostable film.
Thank you.
At the risk of being a bit philosophical at the end of the session, I think we should look at nature. Nature doesn't waste anything. Everything in nature is being reused. I think what we have forgotten in about 100 years of addiction to oil is that nature was bio-based and circular 100-something years ago. Huh? We didn't have plastics. Yeah? So we should find our way back, and I'm not saying that we should sacrifice on all the developments and all the, I mean, also the good things that plastics have brought, but we should relearn to redo what we did 100-something years ago. We were bio-based and circular back then, and then unfortunately got addicted. So we are a fossil fuel today. Yeah? We need to rethink how we do things.
Thank you. Christina, closing statement.
Yeah, to add on that, I think it became pretty clear today that we need to work together, like all the actors at the value chain need to work together to really shape a sustainable future.
Thank you very much. Sylvia.
Yes, I subscribe exactly all the thoughts, but this one especially, in fact, was my, in case, contribution to say that this is the approach that we want to have, to continue having this kind of discussion across all the different sectors, administrations, experts, technicians, and scientists, innovators. Maybe one day also some investors in the room to tell his or her vision.
Sounds like a good plan. It sounds like
Maybe
a good...
there are. We don't know.
We never know exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to thank everyone at home, and I also want to thank everyone here for your engagement in the panel discussion. Fortunately, we were not able to answer all of your questions, but I want to hand it back to Aldo.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, everyone, for this very, very great session. For the questions still to be answered, well, we'll try to gather them and then to make some statement or publish them somewhere. Now we conclude this panelist session, okay? We will have a short break now before we start our workshop, the last activity of the day. For the workshop, unfortunately, the people connected online will not have access to it. It will not be broadcasted, but they will be able to recall the results and the summary of it via the Preserve website. Just send an email there to the contacts and you will get the results at the due time. For the workshop session, just a quick instruction before we go to the break. On your badges, you will have, you will see the number of the group. No? Okay.
We can go now for coffee.
Okay.
We need all coffee and then we can.
Okay, so.
Oh yeah, and a picture, a group picture.
First,
Yes, no, I was about to say that. That was the last thing. While we're having the coffee, we can just take a group picture all together. Please be aware of that.